Hi, my name is Joanna Whitney. I am an intuitive artist, a student of natural law, and an energy practitioner. And I have figured out something that I want to talk about for a while. I'm going to talk about natural law in daily life by regular people. I'm going to go through um, the 7 wrongs on a weekly basis and review how I would review my behavior throughout the week so that people can look at themselves more closely in terms of natural law violations. I'm gonna go over. I was watching Mark Passio interviewed by Tyler Bloyer the other day, and he went through all the natural law violations, and that's what gave me this idea to do. Um, because I think people generally think this stuff is far away from them, or they um, think about the 7 deadly sins, which are sort of an internal emotional state, rather than actions that we take ourselves that are violations of natural law. So I'm going to go through that now. In order for a society to be free, each individual person in society must be moral and good. And of course, there's going to be slip ups at times, but if every person was reviewing their behavior and really looking at their actions um, with regards to how they treat each other in every instance, we would be living in a free society. So I'm going to start with murder, which have you murdered anybody? Somebody maybe has murdered someone. However, if you're a meat eater, which I am, I will admit, um, all sentient beings are included in that question. So you could ask yourself, are you complicit in the murder of animals? Have you ever killed an animal that you then ate? Just something to think about. Um, and then you could also think about if purchasing certain products contributes to the death of others on the other side of the world. Um, and I'm going to get into that in detail. And I'm sure I'm going to get, a lot of whatever, people being pissed off at what I'm saying or trying to diminish what I'm saying, but that's your problem, not mine. Um, these days it's practically impossible to live within the system without violating someone's rights. But if you at least begin to look at what you're doing honestly, opportunities for sustainable action will be presented to you through natural law. And if you're living by natural law in your interactions with other beings, you will be given a lot of leeway to come to the right choices. That is my experience. But I've always been able to find the right choices. For example, with regards to murder, let's just take, well, or assault, actually. The packable down jackets that everybody loves. Um, the feathers from those packable down jackets are plucked from the geese while they are still alive. So the thing is, learn to make choices that are about that cause the least amount of cruelty. There do appear to be beings here on Earth that influence humanity who believe that we have dominion over others, rather than focusing on the wrongdoings of that tiny group of dark occult Luciferians. The onus must fall on us who take orders from them. So, in other words, if you have a job that tells you to run a pipeline through another group of human beings' property, you could quit the job rather than take the orders. Or if you had a job working for the Bureau of Land Management where you were told that you had to round up wild horses and put them in pens, therefore stealing their land for the purpose of probably selling that public land to China for whatever they're doing, mining some rare mineral, you could quit that job and get a different one. And if you had fear of financial insecurity over that, you could pray and meditate and you would be presented with other opportunities. Simply don't follow those orders. I remember when I worked at Home Depot back in 2015 or something. I had a coworker who had once worked for Monsanto, and he just was completely cut off from his being complicit to such incredible violence against humanity for a paycheck. And that's what many people are, police, for example, are complicit in the violation of natural law because they follow man's law, which changes with the wind. Remember back when you could be imprisoned for possession of marijuana, and now it's legal here in Colorado. So you have to start to think for yourself if you want to live in alignment with natural law. There is always another way to do the right thing, and it simply requires time, prayer, meditation, the trivium, using your brain to gather all the information before taking an action. So, taking a life without right is theft. You stole that life and it doesn't belong to you to take. That is a form of theft. If you were in the military, then you could question yourself about that. Assault. You are stealing bodily well-being, like breaking someone's arm or hitting them in the jaw and knocking teeth out. You're diminishing the person health-wise. The body is the individual's property. So what you are doing to property, you are destroying or diminishing someone's property, and that's a form of theft. If you grew up in an abusive family with a father who was a drunk, you might have been assaulted every day. And of course, children who are from the age of 0 to 18 are considered property of the parent, okay? And that is true. That is the truth because they are in the period of brain development. However, if the parent is a drunk or violent without being a drunk or whatever their problem is, that parent does not have the right to diminish that child. And it is the responsibility of the other adults nearby to intervene on behalf of the child. And any adult who does not do that is violating natural law and therefore will be punished by natural law. You know who you are, and you know what the punishment is. So assault is no different than if you break someone's windows for no reason or kick in the door and break the door on the door frame. You have damaged property, and that is a form of theft. Assault is bodily diminishment without right. So the only right that you have for bodily diminishment is in self-defense or defense of another person or being who is defenseless against a violent assault. Rape, sexual association without right to do so, forcing sex on someone, taking their free will sexual association from them, and often doing that with direct bodily violence, which is assault. So that is a form of theft, is taking something that doesn't belong to you. I don't know how people are feeling about this, but if you find something on the ground that isn't yours, is that your right to take it? Maybe, maybe not. Depends. I'll be talking about that. But taking someone's property is a violation of natural law. Physical theft is taking something that doesn't belong to you. Trespass, stealing the comfort and safety of someone's living domain or private space that they have cordoned off for their own use. This is a form of theft. Again, it is all about property. Coercion, you are stealing someone's ability to make their own choices in life away from them. That is a form of theft. You do not have the right to take someone's free will away from them. I'm sure this is happening all over the place by parents who think that they can force their adult children to do what they want on social media, and they're being supported in that. But everyone has the free will choice to make their own mistakes, even if it kills them, because they have their own path. The only exception being if they are causing bodily harm to another. You have the right to stop them. That's called arrest, for the stopping of the individual from continuing to initiate harm. Coercion, you are taking the truth away or diminishing from someone's active understanding of the truth and their ability to make informed decisions and exercise judgment in their own lives. And it is a form of theft if you are willfully and knowingly lying to someone to deceive them, either by omission or by commission. So those are the actions that we as individuals can look at on a daily basis to see if we're performing any of those actions to others and correct them if we are. The 7 deadly sins of the state of churchianity are pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, greed. But these are internalized states and emotions, not actions. They may precede the action, and that's why they're considered the 7 deadly sins. But where we're at right now, we're performing that stuff constantly. Pride is being supported constantly. We have even a Pride Day for a certain group of people, and they fly a flag on their houses that promotes pride. Gluttony is also promoted continuously out there. With every fashion year changing to more fashion every 6 months or whatever, and the old fashion being thrown in the garbage. Well, there is no throwing in the garbage on Earth. I mean, Earth's resources are being used to create that fashion, and it's all about the fake green paper that we're using to trade with at this point, which people may have noticed that the dollar is being devalued. That's why we tried to introduce barter currency a while back, and nobody wanted to do that because it was too hard to wrap your mind around and it was too risky. No, I'd rather go the way of the globalist dollar that's going to be devalued to the point where, it's going to be, you could just burn a pile of $100 bills and it wouldn't matter. Using up the Earth's resources for the fake green paper. When I say fake green paper, what I'm talking about is Federal Reserve notes, and you ought to research where they came from. They got everybody to turn in their gold in the 20s or something like that, and then the fake green paper that we use as dollars right now are promissory notes against that gold. What a joke. People fell for that shit. So a wrong is an action which harms other sentient beings. Murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and deception should be the 7 deadly sins. And they are of natural law. All natural rights can be defined in the apophatic by the negative. It is an epistemological form of inquiry. Why? Because this engages your critical thinking in all situations. In every situation which is different from the other situation, you must always ask yourself if you are engaging in a wrongdoing. This creates freedom. Do not steal. That's the law. So that's what I'm going to be doing. On a weekly basis, I'm going to be looking at myself. I'm going to keep a record of where I may have caused harm to others, and I'm going to talk about it so that other people can look at themselves. Because right now it's just so easy to point the finger out there at all the quote unquote wrongdoing that's being perpetrated. And, I know people are probably generally believing the psyops that go on, but most of it is everything I would say that's on Tell Live Vision is a show and therefore not real. Therefore, some people that recently supposedly died did not. Their fictional character was killed off, and a bunch of people believed in it. So that's where people's focus is on what's wrong with everybody else, pointing the finger at everybody else while three fingers are pointing back at me. So it's time to look at ourselves again and see what we're doing and align ourselves with natural law. And so that's what I'm going to be focused on a weekly basis for a while till I get sick of it. Have a nice day. Until next time.